project for today is going to be this Cub Cadet Ltx 1050 kW. We're going to do a service on it, and he wants the deck belt and the drive belt replaced. He does the belts every couple years just as preventative maintenance on the thing, which these aren't the greatest for the deck belt setup. They do eat belts usually in a few years, so it's a good thing to replace them before they go sometimes if you're going to be using it a lot, and he just wants it to be dependable from year to year. So we're going to pull the deck off of it, and then we'll get it up on the lift, and we'll just start taking that drive belt off of there. So these decks aren't too difficult to take off. Mainly just want to put it all the way in the down position, and then there's a pin like this on each side to pull out, and then up front there's another pin with an arm that you pull out. Once I get the deck loose, I usually just slide it forward to get the belt loose, and then just walk the belt off of the clutch up here. So on a lot of them you can just pull the belt out from the keeper, but this one is, I don't know if it's actually, it looks like it might be bent, but otherwise you can usually sneak the belt out. But I'm going to pull this keeper off. It's just a couple of bolts. We'll just pull the one out, and then it should give us enough room to get that belt out of there. Then we can pull the deck out. Put the lever back up so those arms come out of the way. You can see here on the front, if you're mowing in really rough ground and you hit something that bashes the deck up, it'll rub the pulley on the deck there. You can see where it was doing that. And this belt doesn't look too bad. You can tell that it's a few years old though. So he wants a new one thrown on it, so we'll do that. And then now we'll get it up on the lift and start working on that drive belt. So we have to pull the PTO clutch off to do that drive belt. So I just followed the wires from that up to here and then unplug it there. You just have to get a screwdriver underneath here to pull that clip off and push that back down. There's nothing worse than getting that PTO clutch bolt out and then forgetting the wire, and then you got to try to get that back up there and put it in, and so you don't stretch the wires or rip them off of there. So that's one thing not to forget. And then we'll have to take this other bolt out of this belt keeper, and then we'll drop that clutch off of there. We'll have to get the big impact for that one, I guess. Let's see if this one will take it off. Oh yeah. That one's also got a spring connected to it. Forgot about that. A couple of spacer washers in there. That looks like it'll slide off of there now. So now we need to go to the back and take the battery out of it, and then underneath the tray you can see the belt on the transmission. So put a bungee cord around the seat, because that always seems to want to fall down when you're taking the battery off. The whole tray's coming with that one. And down through the hole we just made by taking the battery tray out, there's a 10mm bolt on the top of the transmission pulley, and that'll make it so you can get the fan off of here, so you can get the belt off. There's the fan. And you can see our pulley down in there, and that does have some keepers around it, so you do have to pull that pulley up a little bit to get the belt off of it, but we'll release the tension off of it first. So I just pushed the clutch in and set the parking brake to release the tension off the belt. Now I'll pull this pulley up. We'll get the belt off of it. I'll set it back in there for now. So up here is a part where a lot of people get confused, where your steering shaft comes down. It goes to the left of the steering shaft, and then this little bolt ends up splitting the difference between side to side with the belt, and then it runs up underneath to your engine pulley, and then it goes, when it comes back, it goes around these two pulleys. So whenever you see one of these flat pulleys, you know that's the back side of the belt goes on that, and then when it's an actual V pulley like that, that's when the V of the belt goes in. You can see this belt's got some cracks and stuff in it, so it's a good thing we're doing this. So in order to get the belt out from around this one V pulley on the left side here, we have to take this little bolt out. And we can get that off of there, and then this other part, it just slides out. There's enough room. We'll have to pull the engine pulley down enough to get the belt or out from around that. Which can be a little difficult if you don't have enough of the tension off of the belt. We'll pull that off all the way, and this can slip out the back. And then we can pull the belt completely out of there. So you can see we've got a pretty good cut in this belt, and another one here. I've been seeing a lot of this in warranting some of the belts. It doesn't matter the brand, it seems like they're all starting to do it, because I've tried several different name brands. I don't know if they're getting them all from the same factory and just putting different brands on them or what, but they get the same cracking in them even when they're not that old. So I've been experimenting with some different brands. I've got a Kevlar reinforced belt I'm going to put on it this time, which I'm thinking will last longer, but I've even had some of those that start splitting. It's something to do with the molding process when they make these, is what my sales rep was telling me, that there's something to do with how they're molded together. It's not holding up. As you've got more spots here too where the outer coating is coming off, and another crack spot here. So we'll hopefully are putting an improved belt on it, so we'll get doing that. This is the belt I'm replacing it with. It's a rotary belt made in USA, so I'm hoping that's a little bit better one. It's a 1/2 inch by 85 inches long. So I like to put them together kind of the opposite way I took them apart. So whatever I took off last, that's what I put on first. So we'll slide this belt up through. We'll get it around the crankshaft. Like that. And I'll put this pulley back on. It already had anti-seize on the shaft, so I'll leave that alone. Otherwise, I would say you should add some, just if you have to do this again. That looks like that went around there good. And we gotta come back to our other pulleys back here. So then we'll go around this flat one, and then on that V pulley. And we'll go back to our transmission. I'm trying to get you a view in here, but it's not working too well. I'll pull this transmission pulley back up. I'll slide that down on the shaft like that, making sure we're in all of our keepers. We got to put this bolt back in over by this V pulley on the left side. That should be good. And I'll put some tension on the belt, make sure it's all good. Feels good and tight. And I always double check just to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. It's not rubbing on anything. Because I have had them where I got in a hurry and didn't check, and it was around one of these bolts or something, and it rubbed and it ruined the belt when I started it up. So you learn the hard way a few times and you start rechecking your work. And we'll put this PTO clutch back on. Kind of look where the key is. And you can still spin this once you tighten the bolt down, so. So, you notice I didn't tighten that too tight. These are usually supposed to be torqued down somewhere around like 65 foot-pounds or something, because there's a bearing in there that you're torquing against. So if you do too much torque, it'll end up wrecking that bearing prematurely. So we can hook our spring back up like that. We'll put our wire back up through the top. And we can put that keeper back on part way. I'm going to leave one bolt out of it just for putting the deck belt back on. So one thing I've mentioned before in other videos, but I thought it's worth mentioning again, is this belt keeper in the front of the engine is not necessarily just for keeping the belt on there. It's also goes in this slot for the PTO clutch, so the clutch can't spin once you engage it. So that's really important to make sure that gets put back in that groove like that. So now that we got the drive belt situated, we'll start on the deck belt. I take these covers off. These ones, I think we got to take the pulleys loose, get it up and around the keepers there. There's that one. This one I thought maybe I could sneak it past, but I think that one's got a nut underneath it. It's a 9/16. I was hoping the nut wouldn't come all the way off. These are kind of hard to get back on there once you slide it up like that and get it off. Get that spring off there. Get that belt off and we'll grab the new one. So these have quite a goofy belt routing, but if you just take your time and just keep an eye on the diagram, they're not super difficult to figure out. And that should come out like that. Kind of just like that. And we'll get our stuff tightened back down. This little keeper here has a groove that it falls into. Might take this all the way up and off just so I can see that we're getting into our groove. That should be good. Now I'm going to wait to put those covers on until after I get it in the mower. That way I can make sure it didn't pop off those outer pulleys where you can't really see them when the covers are on there. So we'll put the battery back in the mower and get it off the lift, and then we'll put the deck back under it and then put the covers on. So I already put the fan and the bolt back on for the transmission pulley. Oh, this cord stuck in here. Well, I got the mower off the lift, so now I'll slide this deck underneath. So I didn't record hooking the deck back up, but the main thing is I just do this front bar first and then come back and do the back pins. Is about the easiest way to do it. So now with this deck belt, I'm going to take it off. I'm going to take the belt off of this outer pulley, but I'm still going to make sure it doesn't flop around and come loose too much. And then I'm going to put it around the clutch pulley up there, and then I'm just going to work it around this one. So then that's on there, and then we'll come back and we'll put this keeper, the rest of the last bolt in that one. These are usually sprung a little bit, so it can be a little bit difficult getting it started. That one went pretty good. I did vacuum off the deck surfaces here where the shields were. There's no sense in risking having stuff under there that can get into the belt and stuff, so I always usually try to clean those off when I have the covers off. They usually never get cleaned by the customer. So I got both the covers back on and I started it up and ran it for a little bit to warm it up, and now we'll change the oil. It's got a drain valve here, and I just stuck this hose on here, and then it's just a 10 millimeter that you turn to get it to start flowing. These can be plugged sometimes, so when you get it out all the way, if it doesn't start to flow, sometimes they'll get like those mud daubers or something in them. If you go actually too far, some of these stop, but some of them don't, so you'll end up popping it out of there and it'll leak all over the place. So we'll let that drain, and while that's draining, we'll do the air filter on it, which this one looks pretty bad. It's pretty dark in there with junk. So pull that out, and then usually underneath you gotta vacuum stuff out of there too. So I'm not sure why this got switched, but they have just a regular kind of hose clamp here that for a flathead screwdriver, and then here it's more of a wing nut style where you can just do it by hand, and that should be up by the air filter to make it easier to change, but these were flip-flopped, so I just swapped them back so it's easier to change the filter out now. So that part's good. And the oil does drain pretty slow on these when they have this hose set up, so I'm still waiting on that to drain. And then we'll grab an oil filter for it and change that too. So we're going to change the spark plugs on it for them too. These ones call for NGK BPR4ES spark plug. They don't look too bad. They look like they've been running a little bit rich, but nothing to worry about. That one looks about the same, maybe a little bit darker. So I got the oil drained out. If you don't have one of these flexible funnels for doing stuff like this, I suggest you get one. They're a lifesaver when it comes to doing these filters like this. Otherwise it kind of drains all over everything. The main thing on this is just to make sure you have a good film of oil on the new filter, and to make sure that surface up here stayed clean when you took the filter off. Usually when they're up high like this one, they stay pretty clean. We'll let that drip off, and then we'll fill it up with oil. So I got it filled up with oil. These hold 2 quarts of 30 weight engine oil. So the next thing we're going to do is get it lifted up, and we're going to take the blades off and clean out the deck and put new blades on it. I got it scraped out pretty good for him. He usually keeps the deck pretty clean. He just wanted me to give it one good scrape before he stores it for the winter. But that is pretty important on these Cub Cadets, especially the newer ones you get. The decks are pretty thin metal, so if you don't clean off all that junk, it holds moisture over the winter and it'll rust them really fast. So this one's got about 500 hours on it, so it's holding up pretty well just because he does take care of it and keeps it clean. So now I'll throw them new blades on. So you can see the difference here between the old blade and the new one. These are Silver Streak tooth blade from Stens, which I actually do prefer these style blades, but they didn't have any in stock with this style, so I went with the next best thing of these rotary copperhead blades. The copperhead tooth blades are not very good, so I usually just get the regular lift blades when I get the rotary brand ones. The teeth on the copperhead ones, see how these kind of curve out like that? They curve the other way, so they create turbulence under the deck, and it actually ends up pushing the grass down, and they don't cut very well even when they're brand new. So if I'm going to get the tooth blades, I always get the Sten Silver Streak, or the Gator blades work really well too. I'm not sure what other brands. I haven't really tried much for other stuff, but you can see how thin this end of this blade has gotten from the sand in this area. Just sandblast the blades all year, so you're lucky to get 1 year out of a set of blades around here. So get these thrown up in there, and then we'll be about done with this one. One last thing I'm going to do to this one is pop these front wheels off and grease them. They do have like a little plastic bushing that has a grease fitting on it, but they don't really work very well to get grease actually into the axle and the hub. So I do take them off usually to grease them. As you can see, there's a little grease fitting there, but it really doesn't ever seem to pump it into there very far. It just kind of shoots out the end. So you're better off just taking them off and just running grease over the axle and then sliding it back on. So I got that all greased up. I'll slide this back on. And our washer here. I'm gonna grab a new cotter key for it too. So I've got the new cotter key in there. I'll slide that hubcap back over. Then I'll do the other side, and then the steering has grease fittings right here, one on each side on the front of the axle. I'll pump a couple of pumps of grease into those two. Well, everything seemed to work good. I didn't want to go test mow with it. I like to let the customer use the blades when they're new like that for the first time. So that's gonna do it for this one. If you like this sort of thing, like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.